Hello my friend and welcome back to Survival Superhero. In this video I am going to do a full review on the AllPowers R600 rechargeable portable power station. We are going to test this thing out and go through all the features. We're going to see who this is for and if it lives up to the hype. Check the description below for a direct link to learn more about the R600 or to purchase one. And now let's get straight into this video. Unboxing. First off, I want to give a huge thank you to AllPowers for sending me this unit to review. So first of all, it comes in some really nice packaging. We've got the R600 on top, and inside is a cord to hook it up to solar panels and a cord to charge it with an AC wall outlet. And it also comes with instructions. And that is it. Now let's look at the specs. Now right off the bat, the R600 comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and a 5-year warranty. This unit is a pure AC sine wave inverter. It's got 600 watts of continuous power out and 1200 watts peak. It's got a battery capacity of 299 watt hours, which is 93,437 milliampere hours. It's got 400 watts max fast charging. It's got a lithium iron phosphate battery, which is actually kind of a big deal, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And it's got over 3,500 life cycles until it starts losing any of that capacity. It's got 10 outputs for charging multiple devices all at once. It's got a free app that you can use to control and monitor the battery. And it does have solar recharging with 300 watt max solar input. Now let's look at the ports. It's got 2 AC outlets, 2 USB-C ports, 2 USB-A ports, 2 DC out ports. It's got one 12-volt output, also known as a car cigarette lighter output. And on the top, it's got a 15-watt wireless charger. It does weigh 12 pounds and it includes a handle, so it's super easy to carry it around, and it's got an LED light built into the front. So now let's talk about this battery. Now, one of the highlights of this unit is that it uses a lithium iron phosphate battery, which is also called an LFP or LiFePo4 battery, which is actually a pretty big deal. Now, some of the benefits of LFP batteries are that they last longer, they charge faster, they weigh less, they can operate in extreme cold or heat, they are safer to use, they have higher energy density, they are low maintenance, and they're even eco-friendly. So the bottom line here is that AllPowers uses a better battery than a lot of other portable power stations do, which is impressive, especially considering how low the price is on this unit, which we will talk about in a bit. This battery can actually last up to 6 times longer than other portable power supplies, and AllPowers says you can recharge this unit over 35 times before it hits that 80% capacity, where it will start losing a little bit of its capacity, and that should last you about 10 years of regular use. Now, I have been heavily using this thing for the past couple weeks, so I apologize if it is a little dusty, and you will see why it's a little dusty here in a little bit. But first, let's talk about charging. There are 3 ways that you can charge it. You can charge it with an AC wall outlet, with solar panels, or with a car charger. Now, AllPowers didn't send me any solar panels or a car charger, so we are going to charge this the old-fashioned way. We're just going to plug it straight into a wall outlet. Now, it only takes about an hour to charge it from 0 to 100% if you're using a wall outlet, which is super fast. And it's got a nice display on the front that shows you the remaining battery life, and you can also see the watts that are going in and coming out. So right now you can see we've got 119 watts coming in from the wall outlet and 0 watts going out because we haven't plugged anything else into it yet. And it says it's going to take about 55 more minutes until it is fully charged. So right now it's actually set to mute mode, which charges much slower than the fast charge does. Which brings us to the app. Now you can use the free AllPowers app to control the R600 with your phone. You can turn the different charging ports on and off, and you can change the charging mode. So there are 3 different charging modes. There's mute mode, standard mode, and fast mode. Now mute mode is very quiet, it's completely silent, but it takes longer to charge. Now when we switch it into fast mode, you can see the input watts increase and the time to charge decreases drastically. But to charge in fast mode, the unit turns on an internal fan to keep the unit cool. And that fan is actually kind of noisy. Here's what it sounds like. Now this decibel reader says it's ranging from 50 to 60 decibels, which isn't quiet, but honestly, it isn't really that big of a deal. It's also got an eco mode in the app that will automatically shut down the unit after a certain period of time. And you can use the app to turn the light on and off on the front of the unit. Now let's plug something in and try it out. Pass-through charging. This unit does offer pass-through charging, so you can charge other devices with it at the same time that the R600 is being charged. So let's test that out. The R600 is still plugged into the wall outlet, and you can see that it's still charging. Now let's plug this Chromebook into one of the ports. When you plug something in, it will tell you how many watts it's using and how long the battery has left before it dies, which is really cool. So you can see we are using 20 watts to power the Chromebook, and we can run the Chromebook for 9 hours using the R600. And when the R600 hits 100% charge, we would be able to run the Chromebook forever as long as the R600 is plugged into the wall outlet. And you can see here that we are still pulling over 360 watts in from the wall outlet, so that means it is able to run the Chromebook and charge the R600 at the same time, which is pretty cool. CPAP Test. So now that the R600 is fully charged, let's unplug it and try it out. First, let's try this with a CPAP machine. Now, many people rely on a portable power supply to run their CPAP machine to help them breathe at night while they are camping. So I wanted to test this out and give you an idea if this R600 would work for you or not to run your CPAP. So let's plug the CPAP into one of the AC outputs, turn the CPAP on, and you can see as soon as the CPAP starts, the R600 lets you know how many watts that you're using. So right now we are using just 6 watts to power this CPAP. Now let's actually start the CPAP. Now with the CPAP running, we are pulling 40 watts max output out of the R600. And you can see it is telling us that we can run this CPAP machine for about 5 to 6 hours at 40 watts. So depending on your CPAP and how much power it draws, it looks like you probably do not want to rely on this to run your CPAP all night on a camping trip. But there is another thing that you might be able to use it for in regards to a CPAP, and that is the UPS. AllPowers says that you can also use the R600 as a reliable, uninterruptible power supply to provide continuous power to sensitive devices with a switchover time of less than 10 milliseconds. So if your power goes out, the R600 can keep your devices running in an emergency situation. So let's test this out using a CPAP machine and then a computer to find out if the R600 really can provide continuous power in an emergency. Let's plug the R600 back into the wall outlet. So now the R600 is drawing power from the wall. Now with the CPAP still running, let's unplug the R600 and see if the CPAP stays on. Keep your eye on the CPAP. So the CPAP is still running, which means that the UPS has worked. And just to prove to you that there isn't anything funny going on here, here's what would have happened if the UPS did not work. The CPAP would have turned off. Okay, now let's try it with something else that commonly relies on an uninterruptible power supply. Let's try it with a computer. I've got the R600 plugged back into the wall outlet and it is fully charged at 100%. Now let's plug this monitor and this computer into the R600 and boot it up. And you can see here that the computer and monitor are pulling 34 watts out of the R600, and the R600 is plugged into the wall outlet, so its battery capacity is sitting right at 100%. So now if the power goes out, the idea here is that the R600 will keep the computer running without turning the computer off. So let's test that out. Now if the computer turns off, we know that the UPS did not work. And if the computer stays on, we know the UPS did work. Let's pull the plug on the R600. And the computer is still on, so the UPS definitely seems to work. And we would be able to power the computer and the monitor between 4 and 6 hours during a power outage using the R600. Very cool. Now let's have some fun and see how long the R600 can power different devices. First, let's try some power tools. Now, one common use for battery power stations like this is for lighter power tools. So, for example, you could take this out to a job site and you could use it to charge Ryobi batteries for 5 hours straight. Or you could use it to power a sander like this in your garage for about 50 minutes. Which I actually did do. I used the R600 to power this sander and sand the red table that I'm using in this review, and it worked very well with no problems. Now what about an angle grinder? You can power an angle grinder like this for about 40 minutes. Now, I will mention that the unit did overload when I applied a lot of pressure with the angle grinder. But just using the angle grinder normally, I had no issues. And if you are using it in the shop, the R600 is pretty well protected against dust. You can just wipe it off and you're good to go. And you can even use it to power something like these large work lights. I actually didn't think it would be able to run these, but you can see it is able to run them for 30 minutes. And if you are using a smaller work light like this, you can run it for even longer. It will run a work light like this for about an hour. And if you've got a smart electrician LED light like this, you can run it for 5 hours. Camping. Another great use for this would be when you are camping. So you could use it to run something like this blender for 1 hour. Or more realistically, you could use it to run a portable electric kettle like this Joule for about 30 minutes. It will run this fan and this light at the same time for 2 hours. Or it will run just the fan for up to 8 hours depending on the speed. Or you could run just this light for 5 hours. And if you want to use a razor like this, apparently you can use it for 7 days. I guess it uses so little energy that the R600 doesn't even register it. Now let's try recharging devices. Another great use for the R600 is to use it to charge your phones or other devices. Now for some reason, when I plug my AGM H5 Pro with fast charge and dock into it, it doesn't give a wattage output, but it is charging it. Let's try plugging in this Phone Max M10. It says it will charge these two devices for 6 hours. And you can also plug them into USB. While we're at it, let's charge some GoPro batteries too. So it says it will charge 2 phones and GoPro batteries for 6 hours. Now let's try charging tons of stuff at once. Now AllPowers actually says you can charge up to 10 devices at once, so let's give it a shot. Let's plug in a laptop into the AC outlet. Let's plug the CarPu infotainment car system into the 12-volt cigarette lighter. Let's plug the H5 Pro phone into USB. Plug the GoPro charger into USB. Plug the Phone Max M10 into USB-C. And let's plug this blender into the other AC outlet. Now, I honestly thought this might be too much for it, but it is running all these devices just fine, and it would keep running them for 50 minutes. Now, let's crank this up a notch. Let's swap the blender out for the Joule electric kettle. Now, this thing pulls a lot more power than the blender, so I don't know if it will be able to handle this. Yep, it can handle the Joule. And it would run all of this at the same time for 25 minutes. Now here's what you cannot do with it. So one thing that you can't do with it is run a really big heater like this. You can see it just overloads it. However, you can get away with running a smaller heater like this. I was able to run this just fine on the low setting, but when I switched it up to high, it did overload. And unfortunately, it will not run this quesadilla maker. So what about the price? You can get the AllPowers R600 for $270 on Amazon or from AllPowers website. Check the description below for a direct link for more information or if you would like to purchase one. Pros and cons. First, the pros. It's got a 5-year warranty. You can power up to 10 devices at once. It charges in only about an hour. It is very lightweight. It does support solar charging. It's got a 30-day money-back guarantee. It's got the higher quality lithium iron phosphate battery. And at the same time, it's got a lower price. Cons. There aren't a whole lot. One bad thing is that the battery capacity isn't huge, but that's just what it is. And it is kind of noisy with fast charge, but I don't think that's really a big deal at all. So who is this for? This is for you if you need a lightweight, simple battery backup for things like short camping trips, lighter use on a job site, or during short power outages. It's great for use in the shop or the garage for when you don't want to run an extension cord really far. And it would be great to use on trips to charge your devices. Who this is not for. This is not for you if you are looking for a serious long-term emergency backup power solution. So if you need to run a CPAP for 8 hours or more on a camping trip, this is probably not for you, unless your CPAP draws a lot less power than the one that I tested. If you need to back up power for your whole house, this is not for you. Or if you are looking to go camping out in the wilderness for a month, this is also not for you. And it's not for you if you want to make quesadillas out in the woods. But other than that, it seems like a great little portable power supply, especially for the price. But hey, what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please share this video if you have found it helpful, and then you can click right here for another great video, and I will see you there.